study abroad experience to San Miguel de Allende has allowed me to revisit the Mexican culture, meet some incredible people, eat fantastic food, and experience education in a different culture. Hacienda Santa Clara was an amazing place to stay because it showed great traditional architecture, landscaping, and a beautiful example of Mexican culture. The Hacienda also held incredible artwork from famous artists such as Dr. Adolf, Frida Kahlo, and Diego Rivera. One of my favorite places in the Hacienda was the dining hall for its incredible food and its statue of the patron saint of San Miguel. Our first stop was San Miguel de Allende, where we first visited the Parroquia de San Miguel Arcángel. The original church collapsed around 1649 but was rebuilt in about 1709 by architect Marco Antonio Sobrarias. This beautiful pink building was given its current facade by Don Serafino Gutierrez. He was inspired by the Gothic style of medieval European architecture, and this gave it its current neo-Gothic style. The inside showed beautiful images of the Catholic faith. We also explored the markets in San Miguel de Allende. We finished our day in San Miguel on the Luna rooftop bar, where we saw all of San Miguel de Allende as the sun was setting. The next day we went to Guanajuato, where we learned about Mexico's deep connection to life and death through the mummies. Visiting the Museum of the Mummies allowed me to reflect on what it means to be remembered. This experience has forced me to think about what kind of legacy I want to leave when I die. After the Museum of the Mummies, we went to the mines in Guanajuato. Visiting the mines showed us how difficult it was to be a miner in Mexico. After visiting the mines, we explored Guanajuato and got to experience its energy, see its architecture, and eat its amazing food. Guanajuato was one of my favorite places to visit during the whole trip. Our main purpose for being in Mexico was to teach some students English in a small rural town called Las Clavellinas. I went into the experience expecting the students to lack a drive to learn and teachers pushing them to succeed. I learned a lot about how hardworking these students are and how much they want to learn. I was also surprised to see how much support the students had from their parents. These students had to face politics, economics, and social status standing in the way of their education, but their parents refused to let that impede on their education. I love spending time with these students and forming relationships with them. I believe I was able to leave a lasting bond with these students that they can use to push them along their path. I know I will be able to take what I have learned from this experience into how I teach students of a different culture. Another part of our trip was going to Las Grutas to experience the hot springs in Guanajuato. I was able to become a lot closer with some of the other students in our group. It was a very fun experience, and I am sure this is a resource I will not be able to find in the United States. Another resource that we explored while in Mexico was the Cañada de la Virgen. I learned a lot about Mexican culture through exploring the pyramids, and it was fun to be in nature in a way that I don't normally do in the US. I learned a lot about the appreciation for life and death that the Aztec and Mayan people had. I also learned about how this area was once a forest and is now morphing into a desert landscape. It was interesting to see the pyramid and how they were built, as well as learn about the girl who was found in the pyramid with a coyote pup. This went along with the legend that when someone dies, their dog crosses them over a river to get to the afterlife. This was actually a story my mom told me when I was a kid. It made me take more pride in my culture. I loved exploring the pyramids and also got a delicious pre-Hispanic meal by this sweet woman. We also visited the Santuario de Atotonilco, which was in San Miguel. This church was filled with beautiful paintings all along the walls and ceilings of the inside of the church. It was one of the most intricately designed churches I have ever been in. This church was built in the 18th century and was directed by the priest Luis Felipe Neri de Alfaro, and he wanted it to be similar to the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem. The paintings were done by Juan Rodriguez Juarez. This church is important because of its presence on the UNESCO list of World Heritage Sites. This church was amazing, and the art was something I could spend hours looking at. We ended our trip by returning to San Miguel to visit the Mineral de Pozos and the doll factory. The Mineral de Pozos opened our eyes to the abundant amount of mineral resources in Mexico. We were also able to go into the mine and see a beautiful lake inside. It was very interesting to learn about all the steps and machines needed to pull out these minerals from the mine. We also went to Hotel Posada, where we found an amazing cactus garden, and we really enjoyed looking at all of the cacti this hotel had. doll factory was a nice way to end this trip because I was able to see the diverse designs of the dolls that each represent a state in Mexico. I learned a lot about Mexican culture and experienced it all with future educators like myself. I will always remember and be grateful for this trip. Thanks, and gig 'em.